Welcome back to Learn Astrology with Mary. My name is Mary English. You can find me at www.maryenglish.com, maryenglish.co.uk, and UK Astrologer. Hello, how are you? Now, I said a few weeks ago that I was going to be inviting some guests onto the podcast. The last 3 people that I've asked are all so stupidly busy that they can't they've got things going on, so just busy, and also other things happening. So unfortunately, I haven't got anybody lined up. I'm going to carry on, and there will soon be someone else to talk with us. In the meantime, I'm afraid you're just going to have to put up with me, so I hope that's okay. Now, this week, I'm wanting to talk about the MC. I've said it quite a few times in the past. I don't use it that much. Funny now that I'm coming to the end of my career, because I'm now pension age, so old. I'm now using it and considering it more in people's charts. So I'll just repeat to you what the MC is, but what I'm talking about today is people that have Venus conjunct the MC. So that's the specific aspect that we're going to be looking at today. So a quick reminder of what the MC is. So in astronomy, the medium Colli is the highest point of the intersection between the meridian and the ecliptic, and should not be confused with the zenith. As with every axis, the complete zodiac traverses the medium Colli once over a one-day period. At the highest point in the horoscope, the medium Colli symbolises the area of life in which an individual makes their mark in the outer world. Because this marks the point in which the individual leaves the protection and privacy of the imam Colli when pursuing a career, the medium Colli in the 10th house represent an individual's profession, or to be more precise, their vocation, their destination. It stands for public or social standing. Now, I do obviously look at it in people's charts, and I always have. And I probably in a session with someone would definitely look at it when there's questions to do with career, or how do other people sort of view you in the career space. And I do definitely consider it when people are thinking about changing jobs, or have got difficulty in their jobs, or that sort of thing. And like the ascendant is how other people see us, the MC is how others see us in a work or business situation. So then you could say, well, what happens if you don't have a job? What happens if you're a stay-at-home mum? Excuse me, you're still going to have an MC that needs to be taken into account. Now, mine just so happens to be in Taurus, which is a very slow sign of the zodiac. And it did take me a while to find out what it is that I wanted to do work-wise, and there is no way that I would change that. So I have been in this field for 30 plus years, and I don't plan on changing that. So what happens when Venus is conjunct to the MC? Now, according to astro.com, and this is an interpretation written by Robert Hand from the Youth Portrait, it says, Venus conjunct the midheaven. At its best, this placement means that you are full of love and affection for others, but at the same time, you can follow your own path and attract only those who are able to go along with you. Certainly you enjoy and appreciate beauty, and you're able to bring beauty into your everyday life. You enjoy peace and harmony, and you get along very well with others. The key element in your ability to get along is that you are true to yourself as well as fair to others. In any career, your ability to get along easily with people will be an important part of your success. So then I did a search on astro.com for people that had got Venus conjunct the MC, but I didn't find the person that we're going to feature today from there, which is crazy because there was something like 940 people on there, and I think I started my search from 19 I think I started it from 19 1960 or 1950 or something, so it didn't throw up the person that we're going to do today. Duh. But it was an article that I read, and it happened to mention that David Bowie had Venus conjunct the MC. So, let's get back to his chart then and see what we've got. Now, I also went through all of the people that have ever volunteered to be on the podcast, and out of 91 charts that I know for sure that I've used, 2 of them have got Venus conjunct the MC. So it's not a frequent astrological configuration. So not everybody's got it. And equally, when I was looking through astro.com ADBD search tool, there were, 900 and somebody people on there. So that was with every type of occupation, which is, it's about 900. It's quite a few pages that turns up with. But there's thousands and thousands of data that's on, because I was sort of thinking, if you've got Venus conjunct your MC, does that make you more successful or less? I haven't got the answer to that question. So we're going to start just with the 2 people that are definitely on the podcast. Let me just get them. So we've got somebody called Richard, and somebody else that I've named MT. And then the other thing, when we're talking about the MC, when you use the equal house system, which I use, the MC won't always end up in the 10th house. With the Blackstar system, because that's a time-based system, the MC is always in the 10th house. Sometimes I've seen charts. So I was reading a book about the MC this lady had written, and when she creates her charts, she does them so that the sort of, I don't know how you do it, like the highest point in the chart is the MC, but I'm not too sure what house system she was using. It didn't appear to be Blackstar's, because all the houses seem to be the same size, so I couldn't work that one out. But anyway, in the equal house system, it could be in any house. But in Placidus, it will always be in the 10th. So that's why the interpretation on astro.com talks about it, being part of the career. But I can quite easily, with my interpretations, see the MC landing in another house has something to do with how the person is seen by others. Yeah. So we'll start with MT, who was born on Saturday the 28th of July 1990 at 11:53 a.m. in Pueblo, CO. I don't think that's California. That's because it stands for Colorado. And they were born 28th of July 1990, 11:53 a.m. in Colorado. So they are a sun sign Libra with moon Libra pretty near to the ascendant. Because they're born in the 1990s, they've got the Neptune Uranus conjunction in Capricorn, and in their chart it turns up in the 3rd. And their MC is 18 degrees Cancer, and their Venus is 10 degrees. So it's within orb to be a conjunction, and they're both in the sign of Cancer. So in MT's chart, Venus is in the 9th. The 9th is long distance travel, further education, philosophy, spirituality, etc. So with their sun being in Leo, conjunct to Jupiter in the 10th, then they're going to be quite lucky when it comes to their career. But how other people see them on the work front, because their MC's in the sign of Cancer, they're going to want to either work in a family business, or people see them as family is important for them. And then natally, with Venus being in the 9th, then they're going to love learning, because the 9th is also about learning. And in the other example, and thank you very much to these 2 volunteers, we've got Richard, who was born on Saturday the 5th of August 1995. So they're also a Leo, also has a Libra ascendant, because they're born at 12:29 New York, which is in New York in the US. And their Venus is in Leo, so they've got Sun conjunct Leo in the 10th, and the MC's in Leo in the 10th as well. So this would be somebody that would prefer to have some sort of work where they are in the public eye. They're not going to want to be in the cupboard or out the back somewhere. They're going to be in public. And then Venus, they definitely want to hear the vibes that what they do is what other people love. Obviously, they're going to need to love it themselves, else it's going to be very unsatisfactory, the type of work they do. And they've got Moon conjunct Jupiter in Sagittarius in the 2nd, so finances are important. And I think the Moon is also conjunct Pluto, even though Pluto's 27 degrees Scorpio, but Moon and Saggy is in Moon and Jupiter in Saggy in the 2nd, and the Moon is conjunct to Jupiter. So you can also do the aspects to the planet that is conjunct to the MC, but this is somebody, both of these people will be loved in the work that they do, and if they were not to feel loved or appreciated, or the beauty thing, etc., then they're not in the right job. Okay, and now the other thing to remember is that when we're talking about career, it's a big complex subject, that you can have a job that pays the bills, and you can have a hobby that blossoms and you love it, yeah. Or you can do volunteer work that you love, or equally the other way around. You can hate the volunteer work and then love your job. But I think it's important, whatever you're doing, if you absolutely hate your job, and I was working with somebody this week who isn't very happy about the work, and I was encouraging them to explore more the hobby side of things, but there's a limited amount of hours that are in the day. But even if you're spending a 5 minutes a week doing the thing that you enjoy, it bolsters and boosts you and helps you feel more fluffy. Now, the famous person is David Bowie. Now, I haven't done his chart before, and I'll give you a little bit of background to my knowledge of David Bowie. So he was born on the 8th of January 1947, which is why I never found him when I was doing the search tool search. When I was growing up and I was a teenager in the 1970s, he very much had already launched his career. So I was what we'd call a fan of his. I absolutely loved the music that he made, and I bought a couple of albums. I didn't spend a lot of money on albums when I was younger because I wasn't into record players and that type of thing. We had a record player in the house, but the thing was, because it was the house one, then obviously we'd have to share our music with everybody else. But anyway, if he came on the radio, which he was, or if I went to I used to go to a disco, get me. The 1970s, I used to go to disco every Saturday night, because there used to be a mass or something, and I'd pretend I was going to mass and then walk through the back door of the church and go into the Hesdon Hall, it was called, next door, and go to the disco, get me. And so if there was any David Bowie music playing, I'd absolutely love that. I'm sure I bought Heroes at one point, and I think I bought Hunky Dory, which were two of his albums. But as I say, I didn't play them a lot, because a lot of the music that he produced, whatever the word is, was on the radio, and I did listen to the radio a lot when I was younger. So that's me. I really, really liked him. And when I went to the American International School of Zurich in Switzerland, when I was living out there for, it was only a few years, 2 or 3 years, he did a gig. That was the Heroes tour that he did. And he came to Switzerland, and I saw him in a place called the Hallenstadion. And I might have told this story before. And he was walking, I was stood outside sort of transfixed, like, I'd got a ticket, but I was stood outside sort of like trying to find the flipping entrance to the place, and I was stood outside the wrong entrance. I was standing outside the performer's entrance, because I'd got completely lost getting there as per usual. And this big black car draws up, and this man steps out, and he walks through the door, and I suddenly realised, oh, that's David Bowie. But I was so I was such a fan. I was like glued to the spot. I couldn't move. I couldn't shout or ask him for his autograph or anything. I just saw him walk through the door, and it only took a couple of seconds for him to get out the car and walk in. It's like, oh my God, that's David Bowie. But I did go into and eventually find the entrance of the flipping place and really enjoyed the gig. So I have seen him live. That was the only time I saw him live, but it was fab. So because he's born in 1947, that makes him 13 years older than me. So with him being on the 8th of January 47, 9 a.m, Brixton in London, he's got an Aquarius ascendant. Oh, that was where I read it. So I was reading Astrology for Dummies. That's where I found it, big pardon. And Ray Orion was talking there about the MC, and she was used as an example. David Bowie, she was talking about David Bowie's chart. She said she could never understand, with him being so wacky, how he could possibly be a Capricorn until she got his chart and looked at it and realised that he had an Aquarius ascendant. As wacky as you can get, Aquarius ascendant is going to push for the wackiness. They're not going to hide it. Because then also she said, he's got Sun and Mars and Mercury are all in the 12th. So one part of him is quite sort of shy and private and stuff, but the wacky side of him, the Aquarius ascendant, is what a lot of people saw. And he also had Moon in Leo in the 7th, conjunct Saturn retrograde in Leo, conjunct Pluto retrograde in Leo, all in the 7th house. He had more than one close personal relationship until he ended up with Imam, I think her name is, and he was very, very happy with her. But anyway, none of this, I knew any of this when I was a youngster. David Bowie does have 2 yods. He has one yod that points to his Uranus in Gemini in the 5th, which is the house of creativity, which is the ruler to his chart, and the other one points to his cluster, his little stellium, in the 12th. So he's got 2 yods, which is quite cute. I like that. And there we go. So his MC is in the sign of Sagittarius, and it's conjunct Venus. So his MC is 3 degrees Saggy, and his Venus is 2 degrees Saggy. Now, so just going back to what Ray Orion said, so this is my references I've got to him. Page 202, I was reading all the different rising signs, and he had Aquarius rising, and then real life example, she said she spent hours tracking down celebrity birth data, and she just couldn't understand how Ziggy Stardust could be like that. And then it's where she said, so I'm just glancing through this, and she's talking about Moon in Leo, proof that he loved the limelight, and Venus at the apex of his chart, showing that he had no trouble holding our attention. But the first thing that comes to mind when you think about David Bowie is like to be his unforgettable facade, which is to say his rising sign or ascendant. And in the chart that she's using there, so I don't know what a house system is, but Venus is at the highest point, so it's like at the 12 o'clock point, and it so they do whatever house system she's using, so it's probably Placidus, that's probably, don't quote me, eek. And Venus is in a higher point than it looks in the chart that I'm sharing with you. So that's how I've referenced today's chart. So then I thought, well, okay, so now I've got a person that is famous, so then we can see what a difference having that has made or not made to their career. So I haven't used every date of every album that he ever released because we'd be here forever. He had a number of albums. Now, an early release was a single called Space Oddity, which I thought was worth mentioning because it was released to coincide with the Apollo 11 moon landing. And as we are at the moment, there is not a landing, but there's an orbit at the moon, which I am going to be talking about, but not this week. That's definitely coming up. I'm going to go through the astrology of that. So he released a single, and it came out on the 11th of July 1969. So this is an early release for him. It's not the only one, but what's going on astrologically, and Mars, which I thought was quite clever, Mars is exactly 1 degree Saggy, and his MC is 3 degrees. So as far as it went, it was released as a single to capitalise the Apollo 11 moon landing. Loads of other people have covered it over the years. Yeah, the album was called Space Odyssey, but that didn't appear to be released until later in the year, which is the 14th of November. Anyway, the single did pretty well, and it ended up being 5th. So I sold poorly, but yes, reached number 5 in the UK, becoming Bowie's first and only chart hit for another 3 years. So that's 1969, 11th of July. Mars is on the MC. But if you ever heard the song, you remember it because it starts with ground control to Major Tom. And it's really quite a sad story, but it's a fantastic track. I absolutely loved it. Now, the next chart we're going to do is the Ziggy Stardust. When he started doing his Ziggy Stardust and Spiders from Mars tour, because it's in doing the tour that kicked off more of his career. They'd already begun a tiddly bit, but that's what made the difference, because he's all sort of dressed up and doing weird things. So he started the tour on the 10th of February 1972. So on that date, because it's pointless me doing transits unless we've got exact dates, keep it in mind that obviously during the tours don't go on for days, they go on for months, sometimes weeks, months, but I don't think any tour's gone for years, hope not, personally be really exhausted. But February 72, what planet might have been, inverted commas, influencing his MC at that point when the tour started? Because if you go to Wikipedia, it'll tell you that it was a very successful tour. Now, at that point in time, I was 12. I had already heard David Bowie on the radio. This is how old I am. I'd already heard him. I'd already heard all the music. It was lovely. And on that date, transiting Neptune is 5 degrees into the sign of Saggy, and his natal MC is 3 degrees. So Neptune's already swept past by 2 degrees his MC and also to his Venus. And when he was born, his Neptune was in the sign of Libra. So I'm sort of wondering in the back of my teeny little mind, I wonder if Neptune was a trigger for the rest of his career, but the first part of it, because natally, if we're talking outer planets, he's got them all in air and fire, which is where they are all going to be now from the 27th of flipping April, all going to be in air and fire, those outer flipping planets. He's got Uranus in Gemini, which is just going to happen again. Uranus is going to go into Gemini, hello. Pluto was in Leo and Neptune was in Libra, and now transiting Neptune has got to his MC, and transiting Uranus has already conjuncted his natal Neptune, and Pluto is working its way onto his natal Neptune as well. And Neptune's the planet of imagination, and so there you've got it, conjunct your MC and your Venus and stuff. And he certainly was a very imaginative person, no two ways about it. I saw a TV programme once about how he wrote his lyrics. He used to write words down on pieces of paper and shuffle them all up. I don't know where I got the words from, but shuffle them all up and then start laying them out to try and make sentences out. So this was very, what's the word for it? Analog. Love that word. I just sort of think of this what people did before the internet was invented. They would write things down on pieces of paper and chop them up and put them down in front of them and then shuffle them around the place. You can't do that on a screen somewhere, add loads of words and move them about and stuff. I mean, you probably could, but it wouldn't be the same. He's physically holding these words on these little bits of paper, and then that was one way that he wrote some of the words for some of his songs. And so therefore the imagination in his natal chart, the sun actually makes a square to Neptune. Not that that's a bad thing. He's going to access some Neptune energies. Mercury's square to it, and so is Mars, and the ruling planet to his chart is Uranus, as I say. So that's the date that the tour starts. So that's 1972, and then also in 1972 we've got the release of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars album, and that came out a bit later that year on the 16th of June 72. So I thought, okay, what's happening with the planets now? So the sun is now in the sign of Gemini, Venus is retrograding, and Saturn are all in the sign of Gemini, all all transiting through his fifth house of creativity. I mean, if you've got Uranus, the ruling planet chart, in your fifth house of creativity, I don't know how it's going to turn up in any other house system, but as far as I'm concerned, you've got the ruling planetary chart in the fifth house of creativity. Surely you're going to do something creative, especially with the moon in Leo as well. Yes, it's all about creativity. Uranus, weird and wacky stuff, like that. And its north node's there as well. But Neptune is now 3 degrees, so it's must have done a teeny bit of retrograding at some point, because in the at the beginning of his tour it was 5 degrees. So at some point in that year it must have retrograded. So now it's retrograded. The album gets released on the 16th of June 72, and it's 3 degrees into Saggy, and his MC is 3 degrees. Bang! It was a pretty successful album. It was probably the one that launched his career, even if it hadn't got launched up until then. So I'm not using every album. I've just picked the ones that I know about, because I didn't follow him for millions of years. Uranus has been retrograded, still retrograding as it was before. It's now, Uranus is 14 degrees and his natal Neptune is 10. Pluto's retrograded all the way back into Virgo, so that's obviously not helping him. And on the day that the album was released, the moon is in Leo. And what's he got natally? Moon in Leo. And Jupiter is now in Capricorn. And what sign of the zodiac is he? It's Capricorn. So that was quite a good date. Obviously no astrologer looked and helped him with it, but it was a good date to release an album. You've got Neptune right smack bang on your MC, so it's either sink or swim, literally, with Neptune. But because it was weird and he was pushing the weirdness, that obviously helped. Now, according to Wikipedia, Bowie reached his peak of popularity and commercial success, because that's all we're interested in at the moment. We're looking at the business side of his life, not his personals, not getting married, not having the kiddies, peak of popularity and commercial success in 1983 with Let's Dance. So let's have a look at, which you can't see, so you'll have to go to the show notes, which are on astromary.libsyn.com. You can find all the charts there. So the album Let's Dance was released on the 14th of April 1983. It was his 15th studio album, and it was released to massive commercial success, reaching number 1 in numerous countries and turned Bowie into a major superstar. It remains Bowie's best-selling album. The record's 4 singles, including the title track, were all commercially successful. The album received mixed reviews from critics whose opinions on the artistic content varied. Who cares? Let's Dance and China Girl was supported by music videos that received heavy airplay on MTV, and the album was supported by the successful Serious Moonlight tour through 1983. So if you've released an album that pushes you into like superstardom, there's got to be something going on. So there is. Now, it was recorded the year before, and on the date that it was released, transiting Uranus is 8 degrees Sagittarius, so that MC is 3 degrees. Uranus would have been conjunct in his MC the year before, exact conjunction that is. Natal Venus is 2 degrees, transiting Uranus is 8, transiting Jupiter is conjunct and is at 10 degrees. He natally has Jupiter in Scorpio, so he's already had his Jupiter return. But when his like bang album comes out and the ruling planetary chart is Uranus, and now transiting Uranus is hovering around on his MC, but Jupiter's there as well. That's what helps his MC and his Venus and all the rest of it, and pushes him. Everybody loves him and blah de blah. So jolly nice thing astrologically. Neptune is still just in the sign of Saggy. It's 29 degrees. It's just about to change sign. Transiting Pluto is retrograde, and that's in a late degree as well. So Pluto is 28. Transiting Saturn has just gone into Scorpio. That's not doing anything in his chart. So the outer planets are just two outer planets, that is, Neptune and Pluto are hovering towards the end of their signs, but Uranus is going kaponk onto his MC. So that's his most successful album. According to Wikipedia, I'm not going to argue with that, I'm sure it is. Okay, so we're going to zoom forwards now. This is the last album that David Bowie released, and it's called Blackstar. I didn't like it. I thought it was just that little bit too dark, and yeah, I sort of went off Bowie when I got older. I mean, I didn't dislike it, but yeah, I didn't like the single. I just thought, for me, it was just too dark. But anyway, according to Wikipedia, it was more experimental. It received Grammy Awards, 3 Grammy Awards, and a Brit Award for Best British Album of the Year. I don't know if he'd already declared that he was terminally ill, but he didn't live very long after it. But let's just look at the release of the album, which did pretty well. Transiting Venus and Saturn, the ruling planet to his sun sign, are now on his MC. So transiting Venus is 10 degrees Saggy, transiting Saturn is 11 degrees Saggy, MC is 3 degrees. The moon is in Saggy as well, so it was well received. I thought it was interesting that Mercury was retrograding at 0 degrees Aquarius, and his ascendant is 3 degrees. Transiting Pluto is conjunct to the sun in the sign of Capricorn, and he's a Capricorn, because remember that lengthy Pluto flipping transit from 2008 to just last year it finished. Was it last year or the year before? Good question. We're 26 now. I think it finished last year. But anyway, Pluto's now very much conjunct his sun sign. But that was an album, did well, but what sort of energies with Venus? Everybody's loving him, loving it, but Saturn is conjunct to Venus, so to taking things seriously. Then we get to, sorry, I didn't say the date for that, or if I did, I don't remember saying it, 8th of January 2016. And then he dies 2 days later on the 10th of January 2016. So he just scraped through being able to get obviously albums must take ages, just managed to get the album out just before he dies. Mercury's still retrograding, Saturn and Venus are still in Saggy, and the day that he dies, the sun, the moon, and Pluto are all in Capricorn, all in his 12th house. And I thought that was, because, what planet is it that takes people away? I've done loads on death charts, and it was the moon that took him away. So the moon conjunct his sun. That's emotional. So obviously he had people surrounding him. It was nice. Nice is I don't know if that's the right word. I don't think death as a thing is particularly nice, but transiting Mars is exactly conjunct his natal Chiron. Natal Chiron 6 degrees, transiting Mars is 3 degrees, but the moon and Pluto are conjunct to the sun, all in Capricorn, all in his 12th house. So yeah, I don't know, do I want to die under a Jupiter transit or a moon transit? I don't know, I'll let you know when it happens. And that's Neptune is now in Pisces, he's got nothing in Pisces. Jupiter's in Virgo, he's got nothing in Virgo. Neptune and Jupiter are in opposition to each other, and Jupiter is retrograding through his 8th house of death. Not that means you're going to die or anything. And the transiting North Node is in Virgo as well. He has no planets in Pisces or Neptune, but on the day that he dies, it's got transits in those two signs. And Mercury retrograde has gone back to Capricorn. It's now 29 degrees Capricorn, so it's gone back into his 12th house. So I'm sure, and I'm not going to read it out, you can look it up. I'm sure he knew that he was not well and he wasn't going to last very long, etc. So today we've been talking about Venus conjunct to the MC. We've covered David Bowie's Space Odyssey, Spiders from Mars, Let's Dance, and then his final album, which is Blackstar, and his passing and his birth and his Venus conjunct to their MC. And I say two people that have volunteered for the podcast, volunteered their charts. Thank you very much for volunteering. If you've got Venus conjunct to MC, please write and let me know and talk to me about your career and what did or didn't happen and what transits might not have happened with it, and is there any correlation for you, because it's just work. MC is just work, it's not personal at all. So I hope you have a fab week, and I'll be back next week. Bye bye now.